Okay, the subject for this evening is angels. And I think I may have mentioned last week, someone once came up to me asking, do Jews believe in angels? And I said, of course, we invented them. So that's the subject this evening. And as I sometimes like to do before we read an article, I'll ask people that just want to comment on your own image of what an angel is or is not. Do you believe in angels? If you don't believe in angels, describe to me the type of angel that you don't believe in. Bryce.
Yeah, one frivolous and one serious, and that is in honor of Jay, who is not here right apparently.
Jay is
I want
here.
to.
Jay
Oh,
is here.
yes.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well then. Oh,
Yeah,
hi,
he
Jay.
he is dressed up as the Unabomber.
I got you. So I was just going to ask if it's the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Is that
Yes,
correct, or if they
that
changed their
is
name
yes.
again?
Okay, so that's if you don't
And
believe
then the
in.
serious thing is, I don't believe in angels. That's all.
Okay.
The kind of
Angeles is
angels I don't
Spanish for
believe in are not sure how you'd put it.
I,
Okay. Anyone
I,
else?
I,
Well,
I, I
angels
only, okay, go ahead.
are a creation of God. God created angels. So if you believe in God, you believe in what he created. He created us. I am a child of God.
Okay,
So
so
we're
but
all.
but I presumably there's a difference between a person and an angel. Is that true, Maxine?
So I don't know if an angel is a person. I
Okay,
know.
that's a very good question. We're going to discuss that actually.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. The only angels I ever seen, it was in Montreal, Canada, and these young little girls were walking around with a white dress and two wings attached to their back, and they said that they are angels. So
Okay. Okay, so actually one interesting question is in Jewish tradition, do we image angels as having wings? But
Yeah.
more comments, Alan?
So, growing up, I always thought that angels related to Christians, but my understanding in our own texts is that there's a role of messengers, and that may not be a literal translation from the Hebrew, but for example, when there's this uncertainty when Jacob is wrestling during the night,
Mhm.
that some people like to think he's actually interacting with God, but there's another way to look at it, that there were, I'm going to call them representatives or messengers of God, which are referred to as angels.
Yes, and we're going to see that in some of the texts. Yes. Jerry Wissett.
When I was in high school, I went to a very Jewish high school, and our director decided to put on a trilogy by Shalom Aleichem.
Mm-hmm.
And the middle part of the trilogy was Bon Sheshvaig, and you had prosecuting angels and defending angels. And there was a court, and we all wore white robes. Just we didn't have wings, but I can't, anything more than that to me is kind of fairy tale-ish. And I also think about Fiddler on the Roof, when he's envisioning or getting her to envision about whoever had gone before.
Yes, Golda's dream.
Yes.
Yes. So do you think those are angels in the dream?
Dead souls are real. I don't know.
Okay. That's good. I don't know is actually a very good question, a very good response. I use it all the time. Sometimes I will cop out and say God knows, but but I don't know is also very good.
Are angels mentioned in the Torah?
Yes, we're going to see that.
yes.
Yes.
Rabbi,
Hold on a second. I'm going to go in order. Jim.
Yeah, well, being Catholic, we believe in actually guardian angels, and I've always believed in that. But To be honest, probably just because I was raised Catholic is that belief. I've never given it a whole lot of thought. I've heard I've heard stories from people whom I admire greatly that can't be explained, but I've never had anything. So I'm kind of excited to dig into the Bible and find out what it says about them.
Yeah. How, how would you describe a guardian angel? What is a guardian angel in Catholic tradition?
Well, I think I'm not sure. I think it's everybody has their own, and I think it kind of started with Moses when God said, "I'm going to give you a messenger or a helper to go ahead of you and show you the way." Isn't there something like that in there?
I don't remember that text, but
Okay,
right.
well, I haven't
I
given
mean,
it a lot of thought.
God leads the way in the desert, a column of fire at night, column of cloud in the daytime, but I don't recall that being described as an angel. But anyway, we are going to look at lots of texts. Cheryl.
I think of an angel, that you use the term malach as messenger, and that, Abraham sees the angels, whatever, Gabriel, they're just messengers to tell him Sarah's going to have a baby, or he gets a messenger to tell him, don't kill your son. And you see that throughout, but, I thought like Maimonides would think of them as not having corporeal nature, not having bodies, that you could see them in any form you want, but that the idea that they have wings is later literature and is more like the cherubs. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that's a very good point, because the cherubs, which are described both in the Genesis story guarding the way to Eden, well, the cherubs are described as holding flaming swords, but on the Ark of the Covenant, the Kruvim, the cherubs, are described as having wings. And there are wing-like creatures that fly around. We see that in some texts. I don't actually recall, I'll choose my words very carefully. I'm not going to say they're not there. I don't recall any description of angels in Judaism as having wings. And maybe as we read some of these articles.
And by the way, the cherubim are not fat babies.
Right. And in fact, as I've discussed that the idea that they're fat babies is a pun in Aramaic, because the word for child in Aramaic is ruv, and keruv would mean childlike, and kruv is also the word for cherub. So there's at least a theory that that's how they became fat babies. Erwin.
Yeah, it is in Genesis during creation. God is talking to angels, and the angels say that don't do this.
Yeah,
because
we'll actually see some of those stories depending on what we read. Not in the Torah, it's Midrash. Erwin, you are a window into Midrash, but you're absolutely right. There's some really interesting things where different angels are arguing against creation, arguing against the creation of humanity, and other angels are arguing in favor of it. So you get this image, and we see it a little bit not described as angels, but in the book of Job, which many of you I know are reading with me on Monday night, that there's some kind of heavenly court and celestial creatures who are described as B'nai Elohim, literally the sons of God or the children of God.
Doesn't Dante also describe
I don't know.
angels?
I know he has visions of hell, but I don't know.
Does. Yes.
Okay. Jay.
Yes.
Yes. I know that angels are written about in the Torah quite a bit. And you just mentioned Midrash. But are there angels talked about or written about in Talmud?
In Talmud? Is that what you asked? In Talmud? Yes. There's a little bit in Torah, and there's a tremendous extensive role in Talmud.
There is.
Yes. And in fact, I think in the Bible only in the book of Daniel, again, I'm recollecting what I read preparing for this, are there any named angels? But in the Talmud, we're going to see a lot of named angels, and in in the Zohar and mystical literature. There are named angels and good angels and bad angels. And Bryce.
And how do the Nephilim enter into this? Because they're not themselves being angels, but being the offspring of heavenly host or whatever.
Yeah, so I'm not terribly knowledgeable about Nephilim, but Nephal means to fall. So they would be potentially fallen creatures. But I really I don't know. That might be an interesting topic. It might be a little too obscure.
Could I ask if you believe in them, Rabbi?
Do I believe in angels? I would say no, except the idea except to the extent that angels are instruments of communication between God and humanity. And I do believe that there is communication between God and humanity. So I wouldn't necessarily describe them as angels. Alan.
So I'd build on what you said, Rabbi, or maybe making something up, build on what you said, is there's some of our teachings had a period that ended, like the prophets. And so is it possible the way we don't think of angels, or I don't think about angels existing, but I still believe that they exist in our tradition. And my question is it possible in the way in which the rabbis and the other people who redact and canonize that there was a period where angels had a role and they don't any longer?
Okay, so what I would say is, I thought you were actually heading in a different direction, which is to say the role of angels in the Bible is somewhat limited. I mean, in a way, it's a little bit like Satan. Satan in the Bible, very limited. The only substantive role for Satan in the Bible is in the book of Job. But in post-biblical literature, in the Talmud, Satan is going to show up and have almost more of a Christian-like sense of tempting people and tricking people, but that's not in the Bible, but it is certainly more in Talmud. And so I would say the same thing is true of angels. There's a limited role of angels in the Bible, and the Bible is definitely closed, by the rabbis, and then in Talmud and later literature, there's a much bigger role for angels.
Rabbi?
Yes.
I just want to read something for you. Archangel Shmuel is he who sees God. He brings love to relationship and can help someone to find a loving partner.
And where is that from?
What?
What's the source of what you're reading?
Oh, the source was Google.
Oh, but do you know where? Do you know
I
where?
was going to say, send it to me, please.
Google is the vehicle, but are they quoting from Talmud? Are they quoting from Zohar? Or you don't know? I've never heard of an archangel named Shmuel, Samuel.
Yeah, I know a lot of Shmuels, but they
Yes.
don't look like angels.
Okay. Alan, your hand is still up. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to share screen, and we'll read our first. And I actually have some songs, and as you know, there are some good angel songs. Let me see. Okay. So I presume, Cheryl, we see the screen? Yes. Okay, good. So this is from a text from a source which I use a lot, my Jewish learning. It's actually quite good. And the question is, do Jews believe in angels, these supernatural beings? Sorry?
What you have on the screen doesn't say that.
Okay, so
yeah, you've got notes on the screen.
And notes. You don't have the article.
Okay, so let me try again. Thank you. Yeah, it didn't show up quite the same as it usually. Okay, now you see it. Do Jews believe in angels?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Yeah, I haven't quite figured out. Well, anyway, that's why I always double check. Okay, thank you. So do Jews believe in angels? These supernatural beings appear widely throughout Jewish texts. So would someone like to read? And I know the text is a little small, but if you can read it.
I can do it.
Okay, thanks, Bryce.
Do Jews believe in angels? These supernatural beings appear widely throughout Jewish texts. Angels are supernatural beings that appear widely throughout Jewish literature. The Hebrew word for angel, malach, means messenger, and the angels in early biblical sources deliver specific information or carry out some particular function. In the Torah, an angel prevents Abraham from slaughtering his son Isaac, appears to Moses in the burning bush, and gives directions to the Israelites during the desert sojourn following the liberation from Egypt. In later biblical texts, angels are associated with visions and prophecies and are given proper names. Later rabbinic and Kabbalistic sources expand on the concept of angels even further, describing a broad universe of named angels with particular roles in the spiritual realm. Angels in the Bible. Angels appear throughout the Bible. In their earliest appearances, they function as bearers of information. In Genesis, an angel appears to Hagar, Sarah's maidservant, and informs her that she will bear a son whose descendants will be numerous. A similar encounter happens later with Sarah herself, when 3 visitors bring the news that she will give birth the following year. When Abraham sets out later to sacrifice that child, his son Isaac, it is an angel of God that cries out to him and instructs him not to harm the boy.
And I'll just interject, in all of these stories, the person showing up is identified as a malach. And now I'm going to ask Debbie a question, which I'm almost embarrassed that I don't know the answer to this. Would a female angel be a malcha? Debbie?
Malachit.
Malachit. Ah, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Malachit, even if there's nothing after it? Like,
yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Yes.
I would like to ask you if I read the sentence, angels are associated with visions and prophecies. So if you have a prophet, what is the difference between if an angel makes prophecies or a prophet?
So I think what's going on here is the angels are the vehicles for bringing the prophecy. So we quite commonly read in prophets, God appears to a prophet, or a prophet has a dream and then recites the prophecy. So I'm guessing they're talking about, I can't think of specific examples, but I'm guessing they're talking about the angel being the vehicle to bring the message to the prophet, who then clearly is human and brings it to earth.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, Alan.
Yeah, now that you've raised the question of gender, I mean, and technically you answered the question of how you say angel in feminine form, but is there support for?
Yeah, so I'm not aware of it being gendered anywhere, but I often talk about this idea, which we're going to read, which we are going to see, where the word for messenger and angel are the same, but clearly you can have a female messenger, and as you'll see in modern Hebrew, it's they don't use the term malach or malachit so often as shaliach. But I talk about that a lot, and I'm always wondering. So I'm taking advantage of our native Hebrew speaker here to ask that question.
So to finish that, then, and the sources of the places you've referred to it, is it in the Torah?
So yeah, well, all of these stories we just read with Hagar and Sarah and Abraham, and Bryce is going to read now about Jacob. These are all Torah.
Right, which would lead me as a student of the Women's Torah commentary that references to that ought to be commented on in the Torah, in that book, although I've never seen it, actually.
I don't understand your...
What I mean is, since you said the sources are in the Torah, and one of the, common or popular and well thought of source of women's Torah commentary,
yes,
ought to have some comments about it if that same reference to gender female
No, they
angel.
aren't. No. I was asking a modern Hebrew question, not necessarily a.
Yeah, that's my
I'm not aware.
question.
I'm not aware of angels being referenced in the feminine
Thank you.
Yeah,
biblical text.
I'm trying to understand what it would mean. I mean, I understand why human beings have gender so that we or have sexes
Mhm.
so that we can procreate, but I don't think there's
Yeah.
been
So
any
the
information on whether the angels are procreating in heaven.
right. So the references, quite a few of the references to angels are begin with a man showing up, and then it turns out that man is an angel. I'm not aware of a reference to where a woman shows up and then that woman is an angel. The reason I'm interested in it is because I talk about the fact it's sort of one of the themes of my own personal theology is that God deliberately did not complete creation, but sends messengers, namely us, into the world to do God's work in the world. And the Hebrew word for messenger is the same as the Hebrew word for angel. And I wanted to double check on gender, but I'm not reflecting a biblical source in that. Okay, I think we're up to among the most
Among,
famous. Yeah.
yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Among the most famous stories of angels in the Bible is the encounter between the patriarch Jacob and an angel with whom he wrestles all night. In the morning, when Jacob asks his adversary to identify himself, the angel admonishes him not to ask. Afterwards, Jacob names the place Peniel, literally face of God. In explaining this choice, the Torah makes plain that the wrestling adversary was an emissary of God. I have seen a divine being face to face, yet my life has been preserved.
Yes.
In the book of the go ahead.
No, I was going to say, in that text, it begins by talking about Jacob wrestling with a man, and then an angel, and then in other texts they say he has actually wrestled with either divine beings or with God. So it's ambiguous. One of the, you know, it is ambiguous in that story.
But
In the books of the
Hold on, go ahead, Erwin.
I don't think the angel or the only I think only God has the power to punish him and make him a cripple, so to speak.
Well, he
Angels or other things don't have that power.
that would be
I mean, a
interesting thing
man
to.
could have that power. I don't
Yes.
understand. I mean, a human being
Yeah.
could make him
Okay.
lame, but that doesn't. I don't understand that.
Okay, it's a good question. We'll have to keep track of that question as we read it. Okay, let's read about the prophets.
In the books of the prophets, angels continue to carry out their function as messengers, but they are also associated with visions and prophecies. One particularly detailed account is recorded in the first chapter of Ezekiel. The prophet encounters four creatures, chayot in Hebrew, that resemble human beings, but each has four faces: human, lion, ox, and eagle, four wings, and their legs are fused into a single leg. A parallel vision is recorded in the 10th chapter, only there the angels are described as cherubs. Not all the angelic figures in the Bible are identified as such. The three visitors who came to Abraham and Sarah are described in the text as anashim, or men, though rabbinic sources indicate they were angels. Likewise, the angel that appeared to Jacob is described merely as ish, or man. When biblical angels are asked to identify themselves, they refuse. In the book of Judges, Manoah, the father of Samson, asks the name of an angel who had prophesied a child for his barren wife. The angel declines, saying his name is unknowable. The book of Daniel is the first time in the Bible where named angels appear: Gabriel and Michael.
We'll read more about named angels in a little bit.
Angels in early rabbinic literature. Rabbinic literature expounds significantly on the nature of angels and their roles in biblical stories.
And again, just a quick word: rabbinic literature will be Talmud, Midrash, that period after the Bible.
The Midrash identifies Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, and Raphael as the four chief angels who surround the divine throne, each of whom has particular attributes. The Talmud identifies Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael as the three angels who visited Abraham to deliver the news that his wife will bear a son. Though the Bible records that the men ate a meal that Abraham had prepared for them, the rabbis stipulate that the trio only appeared to eat, since being angels, they are not physical beings, but merely resemble them.
Yes, Jay.
I lost it, so just go ahead. Keep going.
Oh, okay. Alan.
This organization and ranking causes me to ask a question about Kabbalah and the Sefirot. Is there a context that takes advantage of this idea of an angel in the 10 different sections of Sefirot?
That's a great question. I would actually be surprised if there was not a tradition which identifies particular angels with the Sephirah, but I'm guessing. But that is
because in the Debbie Friedman story where she talks about left and right.
I'm actually going to play that song.
Yeah. So the left and right part reminded me of the Kabbalah story. Yeah.
And the three names. So we have Michael, which is Michael. You all know the word Micha. Well, maybe many of you know the word Micha from the Micha Mocha, who is like you. So Michael is God. So Michael is the one who is like God. So who are the other ones? Gabriel. The Gab in Gabriel is Gibor, which is strength. So the strength of God. Uriel, the word or is light. So Uriel is the light of God. And Raphael refers to healing. We talk about refuah shlema, the healing of complete healing. So Raphael is the healing of God. So we have at least these four angels with El at the end of their name. And those of you who are Superman fans know about Jor-El and Kal-El. And these stories were written by Jews, and I have no doubt that they were responding to the same idea.
Where do you think Michelangelo came up with angels? It's all over the place in the Vatican and the statues.
Well, it's Christian tradition. I mean, Christian tradition picks up on angels.
Jim didn't know anything about. I mean, you know.
Well, the angels appear in the New Testament also. Yes. Jesus actually talks to one, and it's very prevalent there. I just personally never gave a lot of thought to what my guardian angel does for me, follows me around, helps me. I'm not sure.
You think Michelangelo knew about the New Testament?
Oh God, yes.
Maybe he got the idea
because the Vatican is the Pope's chapel.
I mean, seriously?
Yeah, yes. Michelangelo was painting in the Christian tradition. I don't remember exactly what year he is, but very, very late. And I don't know how to break this to you, Erwin, but unlike all the other great people, he was not Jewish. Sorry about that. And in fact, we don't have a tradition of Jews being great artists. And, many people would attribute this to the prohibition of creating images of anything above or below. There's a commandment about that. So
Chagall never painted angels.
Chagall is Chagall, much later, but you don't have a huge corpus of Jewish art. I often say Jews put their effort not into great buildings and not into great works of art, but into text. So the good news is you have access right on your screen to the great works of Jewish intellectual achievement. It's the Talmud, it's Midrash, and so on. So that's, Jews. So Michelangelo and those guys were very much Christian artists.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So I think we're into Midrash.
Yes. The Midrash includes many fanciful portrayals of angels. According to one source, Michael is made entirely of snow and Gabriel entirely of fire. But despite their proximity, they don't harm one another, a symbol of God's power to make peace in his lofty heights. Multiple midrashic sources identify Michael as the heavenly defender of Israel at odds with the demon Samael. And another midrash describes a debate among the angels over whether human beings should be created. In this debate, the angel of love is in favor of creating humans because of the human capacity for expressing love, but the angel of truth disagrees, fearing that humans will be prone to falsehoods. In support of creating humans, God shows the angels examples of righteous people from the Bible, but the angel of earth rebels and denies the angel Gabriel the dust he needs for the creation of people, fearing that humans would wreak devastation on the earth. The angel of Torah argues against human creation too, contending that people should not be created because they will suffer.
So you see this in midrashic literature, and it's it's quite fanciful and entertaining.
The Talmud records a teaching that two ministering angels, one good and one evil, accompany a person home from synagogue on Shabbat evening. If they find the person's home prepared for Shabbat, the good angel declares, "May it be your will that it shall be like this for another Shabbat." And the evil angel answers against his will, "Amen." If the home is not prepared, the reverse happens. The evil angel voices a wish for it to be this way for another week, and the good angel responds, "Amen." Shalom Aleichem, a liturgical song welcoming angels into the home before the Sabbath meal, is inspired by this teaching.
Okay, and it just so happens.
What time period was that song that we know so well? What century or period?
I have no idea about the music,
okay.
None, but the discussion is Talmud, and in fact, I think, can you guys see Safaria?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So here's the reference in the Talmud, 119 Shabbat 119b, and verse, section 3. I mean, it's wonderful how Safaria actually labels these things, so we don't have to search for them. Rabbi Chizda said that Mar Ukva said, one who prays on Shabbat evening and recites Vayechulu, the two ministering angels. Vayechulu is I think it's the opening word of the creation story, of a creation story. The two ministering angels who would accompany that person at all times place their hand on his head and say to him, "And your iniquity has passed, and your sin has been atoned." And it was taught in a Baraita by Rabbi Yosei Bar Yehuda. Two ministering angels accompany a person on Shabbat evening from the synagogue at home, one good angel and one evil angel. And when he reaches his home and finds a lamp burning and the table set and his bed made, what's interesting, his bed made, and that's in the bold, so that's one of the mitzvot. The good angel says, "May it be your will that it will be like this for another Shabbat," and the evil angel answers against his will, "Amen." And if the person's home is not prepared for Shabbat, in that manner, the evil angel says, "May it be your will." And anyway, it's the story. So the story is from the Talmud. I don't have a clue as to of the music, but I do have a video of the music. So
quick question, Rabbi.
Yes, go ahead.
So there are bad angels
In the Talmud, yes.
And so they are there to lead people astray. Are they?
I would say,
I guess.
yeah. So I would say,
are they? One moment. Are they perhaps a repurposing of the concept of demons to put it more under the canopy of Jewish text?
I actually don't understand those words.
Well, what I'm saying is that people have always had this idea that there are demons around trying to get them and so forth. Okay.
Right.
So is this perhaps a taking of that folk belief?
Yes.
All right. And putting it into a structure of Talmud.
Yes. Yeah. And as I've mentioned, and it might actually be interesting to, one of the sessions would be to pursue Satan stories in the Talmud. because they are pretty wild. I mean, there's a story of Abraham was going to sacrifice his son, and Satan appears to. I think we read some of this. Um, uh, anyway, Satan appears and tries to get the son, tell the son, do you know what your father's going to do? And so yeah, we see that in the Talmud. And I don't know if evil angelology is developed much in the Talmud, but clearly we see it referenced here, and we will also hear about it in a song. So Jay, excuse me, Jay, and then Alan.
Bryce just said something, and I need an explanation from either you or him. Do you mean to tell me that I am to think that I have an evil angel and a good angel following me around?
No, I'm not telling you that at all. You can think whatever you want to think. But you've heard the song Shalom Aleichem?
Yes, it's a great song.
Yes, that's the origin of this song, that there are ministering angels. We'll hear the song in a moment. And the Talmud tells a story about that. Do you have to take that story literally? I would say the answer is no.
Thank you. You answered my question.
Okay. And again, I would say it's presented as a way of trying to get you to be more Sabbath observant. But you do see stories about an angel and a devil on your shoulder, and the angel is trying to get you to do good things, and the devil is trying to get you to do bad things. And we talked about the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov. So I would say our tradition anthropomorphizes these tendencies in this way.
Does this mean, what you just said, does this mean that the bad angels come from the devil?
I didn't say that. But okay, so what I would say is what we and the good angel and bad, I don't know in the story that the bad angel comes from. I don't recall ever reading or seeing in Jewish tradition a sense that bad angels come from the devil or from Satan. In the Talmud, there are lots of Satan stories which sound like the Satan that I understand from Christian tradition. And in the Quran, there is also, you also see Satan appearing in Arabic, Shaitan, and I can't remember the other name. But the Talmud, talks about that. Music. I'm sorry, Maxine?
We have the music.
I can't understand what you're saying.
You said you have some music ready for us to hear.
Yeah, I do. Okay. One comment from Alan, and then we'll play the song.
Okay. Going back to Bryce's point about demons, this connected in my mind to what I always understand to be some superstition about tying red yarn around
thread, yeah.
children to ward off the evil eye, all that stuff.
Yes,
which always attributed to be superstitious. But is that related to this angel demon thing?
It's definitely related to demons, and there are lots of stories about Lilith. That Lilith causes men to have nocturnal ejaculations, and then takes the sperm and conceives demons with those sperms, and those demons are a threat to babies. So I would say a superstition is an article of faith that you reject. Hey, Bryce, I'm going to ask you to hold it. I want to play the song. Let's see. There's a bunch of. God, let's see. Okay. Okay. Shalom Aleichem. So step number 1, do you see it? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and step number 2 will be, do you hear it?
And it's called Shalom Aleichem, which means peace be with you, or peace be on you. And one thing I love about the song is that it's about angels, which kids sometimes like to hear about. So there's a tradition that to make Shabbat even more special, some visiting angels come and hang out with us while it's Shabbat, and then they leave at the end of Shabbat. So this song is saying greetings and welcome and peace be with you, angels. And then at the end it says, leave in peace, angels, and we'll see you next week. It's traditionally sung on Friday night before Shabbat dinner, before we recite the Kiddush, the blessing over the wine, but it also makes a really great lullaby at night that my kids love to hear. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bolechem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Let me make a funny comment. I've never seen colored transliterations. I've seen color on screens.
Who makes peace up in the heavens.
Oh, hang on. Let me see. I think.
Okay, sorry.
I need to close it. Okay. There was another.
My funny observation is that sometimes it's helpful to have a display follow in color to Hebrew to help people who don't know the Hebrew so well. But I don't understand why you need transliterations to do the same thing, since that's the whole point of the transliteration.
Because people may not know where we are. I don't know. But I did look for one that would have either a Hebrew text, but I wanted also, since it is in Hebrew, for people to be able to see the English translation.
Exactly. It was more the person who designed the colors system. That's all. Thank you.
That was the first Shabbat song I ever learned when I was 3 years old.
And again, if we had a musical expert here, you know, I don't know when that was composed, but there are lots of melodies for Shalom Aleichem. There's Sephardic melodies in Ladino, which is like a anyway. So it's not as though that melody comes out of the Talmud. Okay, Bryce.
Yeah. So back to this whole demon issue. I just wanted to raise the point that before we ever got to this kind of organized religion, all right, there was something called animism. And this was the belief that primitive people have and have to this day, if they're primitive, that there are spirits living within all of the objects around them. And that these spirits are all hovering around them, spirits of the dead and whatnot. So this is and just like you will find a religious tradition in Catholicism or other religions where people will take the religion in a folk way in a tribe or something like that, and they will bring in their own folk traditions and put them into the religion.
Yes, I agree with you.
And so I'm thinking that this might be a source for the demons and so forth that are being introduced here, is that people believe in them around them, and they need to be incorporated to be for people to feel comfortable about it.
Yes, I agree that we incorporate older traditions. I would say ancient rather than primitive. Since I would say there are, Native American religions and other religions, maybe Far Eastern religions, who would talk about the spiritual essence of things surrounding us, and I would not necessarily consider that primitive. Jay.
Understood. Yes.
This is a question basically for the participants in the group tonight. When I hear Shalom Aleichem and maybe a dozen other chants. I call them chants. I get very emotional.
Mhm.
Yeah.
When I read the English, to me, it's a story. It's a Bubby Meiser.
Jay, when we sing, we pray twice. So it is emotional.
Okay, so I mean, I really feel emotional when I hear Shalom Aleichem.
Me too.
When I
Yes.
hear Baruch.
So I would say there's a couple of things going on. First, you have the advantage over Debbie and I in that you don't understand the words. So you don't have to worry about whether you believe in angels coming and going and so on. You can just enjoy the melody and singing with other people. I mean, I think I've mentioned to you, I remember my teacher, Larry Kushner, um, say that sometimes he envies people that don't understand Hebrew because when we are praying, we don't have to worry about what the meaning of the prayer is. We can just get lost in the prayer.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's
So
what the Ninguns.
yeah, well, in Nigun, there's no words, so that's
right.
pure melody. So in a sense, that's the ultimate. Oh, so there was just an article. I think it was an AARP magazine. I know some of you are going to be shocked to learn that I'm old enough to be a member of the AARP, but yeah, I use the phony ID to get my membership. There was an article about music and music therapy and music and the neurology of music. I know we've talked about this, and I remember vividly I would conduct services at a nursing home, and there was one man there who was aphasic, which is to say he could not communicate, he could not speak, and I would start singing um, songs from High Holidays, Avinu Malkeinu, and so on, and he would start singing along. And um, and when I mention this to nurses and so on, they absolutely agree. Apparently, there's different places in your brain where music is stored, and it affects you differently. I think Jay, you said it very well. In this article, which absolutely blew me away, there was a mention of Tony Bennett, who I think died, right? Tony Bennett
Yes.
died
He
recently.
died recently, but he was able to sing because it's a different part of memory.
Yeah,
even
but
though
what
he had
they
advanced
described
Alzheimer's.
what they described in this article was he could barely communicate. When
Right.
someone visited him and met him, with his wife there and so on, he sometimes didn't remember who his wife was. He could barely speak. He could barely form a sentence, but he could actually, do his act, which was a lot of songs, and they're not simple songs, and the language isn't necessarily simple, and he had, there's music and everything else, but it was very clear that that was coming from a different place in the brain. And this article went on to say that with music therapy and encouraging people to sing familiar songs, there actually seems to be some evidence of improvement.
If you can't carry a tune, does that
I have no
handicap you
idea.
for this purpose?
I don't think it's a problem. Bryce.
Yeah, and one thing, I used to be as a former professional musician, okay, and I used to have to perform singing and playing, okay. And the experience is that the words and melody together are a unified whole, okay, that they're stored together, and in fact, you can sing the song without even thinking about what the words mean, and it still comes out. And in fact, that's one of the things that a professional singer has to guard against, okay? Because then it becomes rote.
Yes.
And then they're no longer expressing emotion. And so you have to think about what you're singing as you're singing it, but it comes along with the melody, and you get to notice the meanings as they come up. And that's the experience. It comes from a different place.
Yes, absolutely. And, I was even thinking about it today. I was conducting a funeral, and I chant at the end of the funeral, El Male Rachamim, which is a very traditional prayer at a funeral, prayer of mourning. And I absolutely know it by heart. And, I will I'll be looking at the faces of the mourners, but I could not recite the English translation by heart. And I believe that it's one of the reasons why we chant Torah. If you want to hear somebody reading Hebrew without having the foggiest idea what they're reading, go to any bar bat mitzvah, and you'll hear the child chanting Torah. And if you know the Hebrew and know what it means, it'll be very clear that they have no understanding of what they're saying. But I think Gregorian chants, I think the fact that prayers are to music are all reasons for this. And I use as my proof text for this thesis that I bet all of you can complete this sentence. It was an itsy bitsy teeny weeny
yellow polka dot bikini.
Everybody knows that. I mean, I'm so comforted from teenagers to us AARP members. We can all recite that, and there's no reason to remember that.
I grew up with the song on the radio.
Yes, I know, but I couldn't recite the Gettysburg Address or even sometimes my home address.
That could do that.
Okay, so let's see. I don't think we're going to finish this. Let's read about the hierarchy. So we read about the four angels. I'm going to save the next song for next week. Let's read about Maimonides' angelic hierarchy. And then
we didn't say righteous people. We didn't hit the Sanhedrin. Okay, let me read.
I have no idea what's on your screen. Do you see where it says Maimonides?
As in the Midrash. That's where I want to read.
The Midrash includes?
The Midrash.
Yes, yeah, we didn't wait a minute.
Okay.
No, that's not it's farther down. There was another. There was a Shalom Aleichem after that. As in the Midrash.
Oh yes, you're right. Yes. You're right. Thank you.
As in the Midrash, angels in the Talmud occasionally argue with God, affording them a degree of independent agency that complicates the notion of angels as mere messengers carrying out divine objectives. The rabbis of the Talmud may have been concerned that angels would become the objects of worship in and of themselves, a concern that some understand to be behind various Talmudic texts, indicating that righteous people can equal or even surpass the holiness of angels. In Tractate Sanhedrin, the Talmud states that righteous people are greater than the ministering angels. Maimonides' angelic hierarchy.
I'm going to move it up a little bit.
Maimonides, the 12th century scholar, devotes a section of his Mishnah Torah to the nature of angels. They are incorporeal beings, he writes, possessing form but no substance. Descriptions of angels as winged or made of fire, Maimonides says, are merely enigmatical prophetic visions, that is, inevitably inadequate attempts to describe the formless and the spiritual within the confines of human language. Maimonides describes a 10-level hierarchy of angels with different types, such as holy creatures, chayot, hakodesh, flying serpents, and chariot bearers. All of these forms are alive and know God intimately, Maimonides writes, but while they all know God more deeply than human beings do, even the highest among them, knowing more than all those below, cannot know the full truth of God.
Yeah, and in the Wikipedia article, which we'll read some of next time, if you go all the way down to the bottom, it has Maimonides, and if you're really interested in his hierarchy, and I gave you the link, so there's his 10 classes of angels, and they're named. And then the Zohar has 10 ranks, and I wonder with, I think, Alan, you raised the question whether they're linked to the Sefirot. And then another guy, Jacob Nazir, has 10 ranks.
Rabbi, are any of these acrostics based on the alphabet, like many things are, or not really in this case?
I don't think they are in this case. I don't see any. The interesting thing is that they're all 10. So I'm not sure.
Oh, you got 10 commandments and you got 10 fingers.
Yes, so that may be. And there are 10 Sefirot. But so anyway, so it looks like there's a whole bunch of different categories of angels. And Maimonides, being the rationalist, is trying to put this into a rational form, although, he's tends not to go with this kind of stuff. Okay, so we'll pick up with angels in Kabbalah, and I have that other song about the 4 angels, beautiful rendition of that song, and maybe we'll do some other angel songs next week. And that's pretty much what I wanted to say. I will stop sharing. So it's
Teen Angel.
Teen Angel, yes.
How about
So anyway, but that is a very good point.
You're
I
dating
think
yourself.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not quite
Angel.
as profound as Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny, but we do image, I would say, in popular culture, and I don't hear this so much in Jewish sources, but I would say in general sources, which I attribute to be generally Christian, is that the person who has died is now an angel. And so where, Judaism absolutely talks about the survival of the soul and the journey of the soul from this world to the next world. And there's a lot of discussions about that. Maybe that would be a good thing to talk about. I'm going to put that on my list. But I don't see Jews talking about, I'll say knowledgeable Jews, talking about the person who has just died is now an angel. Even people like me who will say, my father or my mother is watching over us and protecting us. But I think about it as a soul and a spirit. I don't think about it as an angel. But I would say, but I'm glad you mentioned Teen Angel, because I think that is a popular image. I won't say it's the popular image, but that now someone who has died is now an angel in heaven.
But the other common practice is a woman of valor. That resonates to me. Woman of valor, right? Isn't that?
But I don't know what that has to do with angels.
It doesn't. It's a way in which we show gratitude to women who've passed away during.
Oh, it's not only in Jewish tradition. The husband recites Eshet Chayil. It's the
Shabbat.
It's the 29th, not psalm, but proverb. He recites it to his wife, so it's not only dead women. Yes,
Rabbi.
Hold on a second, Jay. Go ahead.
Yeah, Rabbi, you just said something that really fascinates me, and that is that your mother and father have passed, yet they are up there watching you.
I would say I love that image. Whether I intellectually believe it is another question, but I love that image.
I'm with you. Thank you. That's something we do agree on.
Yes. And I will tell you a story about that. My younger brother lives in Miami, and during hurricane, it begins with a D. Now I can't remember the name of the hurricane. Terrible hurricane quite some time ago. It was during the yahrzeit of my mother. So he lit a little yahrzeit candle and put it probably in the sink because they had to leave. They were evacuated, or maybe they hid in the closet. I don't even remember what. Anyway, I think they evacuated. So when they returned to their home, the roof was gone. There were several inches of water throughout the house, and the yahrzeit candle was still burning. So go figure.
Rabbi?
Yes.
Of all the things that could be saved, the candle was the least of their concerns.
Of course.
No,
It would have been nice to have a roof and no candle.
No, absolutely not.
I would say that's true had they been given that choice, but they chose to interpret it that my mother and my brother's mother were watching out over their lives.
There you go.
Okay.
I'll go with that.
And like most good scripture, you can interpret it in the way that is most comforting for you. And as one of my teachers likes to remind us, that just because something is comforting doesn't mean it's not true.
If there's no roof and it's raining, what is keeping the glass part of the yahrzeit candle from just filling up with rainwater and putting out the candle?
That's a good
My
question.
mother.
Rabbi?
You have any other questions, Stephen?
Yes.
No,
I
was it
would
filled
like
with
to ask
water and miraculously still burning, or was it somehow did not enough water land in it?
I don't have the recording.
Rabbi?
The big
Yes.
question is how many days later did they come back? And that's a heck of a candle if it lasted that long.
No, they came back the next day. I mean, they evacuated that night. The hurricane passed through because a yahrzeit candle is a 24-hour candle.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
sometimes it lasts for more than 24 hours.
Right.
Like
Yes, sometimes
Rabbi?
25.
48 hours.
I've never heard of one lasting
Yep,
48.
it happened.
Okay, it's a miracle.
Rabbi?
6 more days and we have Hanukkah. Yes.
Rabbi,
Yes.
I would like to ask Jim the question, and this didn't come up. Is if I am remembering correctly, a Cupid is a Roman or a Catholic angel?
Oh, no relationship to Catholicism whatsoever.
Because it has a wing and all that little.
Catholic angels don't have wings either. That's
Oh, they don't?
from art and no. There's never been a no. They may be in paintings and stuff, but there's nothing in the New Testament that talks about wings or fat babies or any of that stuff.
But look at the greeting Hallmark cards for February 14th.
Is Cupid an angel?
I think
Cupid is an advertising device.
Yeah, Cupid is
Hallmark.
Yes, and also I don't think bows and arrows, which are in the Bible, are associated with angels, particularly in a good way. Okay, gang.
So let me
yes.
Tonight is the beginning of
Rabbi,
holiday.
Hold on 1 second, Alan. Go ahead, Maxine.
I was going
to. Song. You said one more song.
Yes, next week. Tune in next week.
Oh, how about today? Before we leave today?
How about that? No.
It's late. He wants to have a life.
You think I want to lose all this business from next week? I got to pay the bills.
All right, then I'll make my comment, which is tonight is the beginning of a holiday, so Hag Sameach for
Tu B'Shvat. Okay, so Maxine,
hug a tree.
Maxine, you really want a song?
I love a song.
Okay, good. No. So I apologize in advance for those of you that heard this on Saturday. But so tell me your favorite Tu B'Shvat song.
Oh, I love them all, Rabbi.
Tell me one.
I don't. Whatever you say.
Okay. I'm not aware of many Tu B'Shvat songs.
Isn't there a Debbie Friedman one?
Trees are blowing in the wind. They're blowing.
That one.
Yes. Okay. So I wrote my own Tu B'Shvat song. Okay. Tu B'Shvat is the birthday of the trees. Why do trees need a birthday? Because you're not allowed to use their fruit before they're 3 years old. So if they're 3 years old, how do you know what their birthday is? So they all have the same birthday, which is the 15th of the Hebrew month of Shvat. Okay, so here is my contribution. And if you are sick of this, blame it on Maxine.
No.
Are you ready? Tree for two Bishvat. It's a chag about which we don't hear a lot. If you were a tree, you'd be jumping for glee for two Bishvat. The trees on Tu Bishvat would love to run and dance, but they're rooted and so they cannot. It's up to our mishpachas to make the fuss and barachas for Tu Bishvat. Yes, you. Oh no, it's the
Keep
new
your
year
day job.
of the woods. A day to feel grateful for all of our wooden goods. The Seder comes later. We thank the Creator for Tu Bishvat. Yes, you. On Tu Bishvat. This Tu Bishvat. Confess that you almost forgot. But by singing this witty refrain, you and your aging brain will recall it all. And so when we eat an apple from the tree, or orange or avocado, we say Borei Pari. Borei Peri Ha'etz. We bless and thank God who creates the trees. Happy Tu Bishvat. That'll teach you, Maxine.
I'll tell you that Julie was able to find the beat in there somewhere.
Yes,
And
yes.
really, she did a great job.
Yep. Okay, well, thank you all. Happy Tu Bishvat. And you know, go out and hug a tree, and we'll see you next week. Take care.
Good night.
Good night.
Arrivederci.
Thanks, Rabbi.
Can I say something to Jay? Jay, please lighten up for next week. Lighten up, Jay. Thank you.
Or turn the heat on in your place.
Okay, good night all.